All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving into some seriously questionable predictions about 2024. You know, the kind that make you raise an eyebrow and kind of chuckle to yourself?
Oh yeah, the ones that are just begging for a good dose of skepticism.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing today, folks. We're taking a purely satirical lens to this whole 2024 prophecy
We're
craze.
not just going to list them off. Oh no, we're going to have some fun with this.
That's right. Think of this deep dive as a healthy dose of skepticism with a side of good old-fashioned humor.
Perfect for those who love to question everything.
So where are we getting these outlandish predictions from? Well, we found this really entertaining conversation between a couple of YouTubers who are dissecting these pronouncements about 2024.
They cover everything from AI taking over the world to natural disasters of epic proportions. And then there's this particularly interesting character,
Oh, it's this character
a
loves.
supposed time traveler from 2062.
It's like listening to a gossip session, but with predictions instead of celebrity scandals. They
Exactly.
just call him 2062,
Yeah.
keeping it nice and simple.
Right to the point.
He's apparently become this internet sensation, for seemingly predicting some major earthquakes in Japan.
Like the 311 earthquake and the Kumamoto earthquake.
Yeah, those were massive.
Yeah.
And the way he phrases these so-called predictions is interesting, to say the least.
Super vague, like his message about climbing a mountain to survive.
What does that even mean?
Right, it could apply to a million different disasters. It's like he's channeling Nostradamus,
Right.
speaking in riddles that can be interpreted in a million different ways.
It's the perfect recipe for confirmation bias, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely.
After a massive earthquake and tsunami, climb a mountain to survive suddenly sounds like a stroke of genius. But couldn't you say the same thing about a volcanic eruption or a massive flood?
You could even say it about a zombie apocalypse, for crying out loud.
Exactly. It's all about fitting the prophecy to the event after it happens.
100%.
So did 2062 actually predict anything, or are people just reading into his cryptic pronouncements?
That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah. And just to make things even spicier, 2062 also predicted some major event that will impact immigration to Japan in 2024.
The YouTubers are throwing out all sorts of possibilities.
Like war, a natural disaster.
Maybe even a public health crisis.
It's a pretty wide range of possibilities.
Conveniently vague, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. No specifics, no dates, nothing concrete that can be easily disproven.
It does make you wonder about the motivation behind these prophecies. Is it genuine foresight or just a clever way to generate buzz and keep people hooked?
Oh, hold on tight, because 2062's predictions are about to take a wild turn. He also predicted a World War III scenario.
Oh no, not another World War prediction.
And get this, it's all triggered by a conflict between two Asian countries.
Okay, so far so good.
And it escalates into a full-blown chemical weapons war.
All right, now things are getting a little out of hand.
But here's the kicker. He claims India will emerge as the dominant global superpower
Okay.
with a population of, wait for it, 5 billion people.
5 billion. Where did he even come up with that number?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Even if we entertain the idea of a large-scale chemical weapons war, which is a terrifying thought in itself, the notion of India reaching a population of 5 billion by 2062 is just logistically mind-boggling.
It's just not feasible.
India's current population is around 1.4 billion. Even with the most optimistic growth projections, reaching 5 billion in less than 40 years is, well, it's just not possible.
It would be like saying the entire population of North and South America will suddenly pack their bags and move to India.
Talk about a population density problem.
Why, it's like he pulled that number straight out of thin air.
Speaking of pulling things out of thin air,
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
let's move on to our next guest star in this 2024 prediction extravaganza. A British psychic named Craig Hamilton Parker.
Oh, yes, the classic doomsayer.
Always a crowd favorite.
He seems to have a knack for painting a rather bleak picture of the future.
And 2024 is no exception.
Oh, definitely not. Hamilton Parker predicts conflict between Pakistan and India.
Starting to see a pattern here.
Earthquakes in the U.S. and Mexico,
Of course.
floods in Europe,
Naturally.
and a tsunami in Australia.
Why not, right?
It's like a greatest hits compilation of potential disasters, all wrapped up in a neat little package of doom and gloom.
It's almost formulaic, isn't it? These vague, fear-inducing pronouncements about impending disaster. It's a tactic that's been used by psychics and self-proclaimed prophets throughout history.
I bet we could create a drinking game out of this.
Oh, most definitely.
Take a sip every time Hamilton Parker utters the word disaster.
We might need a whole case of whatever we're drinking for that game.
Well, perhaps it's time we cleanse our palates with something a bit more uplifting. Remember those YouTubers we mentioned earlier?
The ones dissecting all these
Yeah,
predictions.
those too. Well, they decided to have a little fun with a language model.
A language model.
Yeah, like ChatGPT.
Yeah.
They asked it to generate some more positive predictions for 2024.
Interesting. So they went from consulting the doomsayers to asking a computer for its opinion.
I guess you could say that.
And what did this AI oracle have in store for us?
Well, it painted a rather optimistic picture.
Oh, tell me more.
It predicted things like space tourism becoming more accessible, life-extending therapies being developed, and AI reaching human-level intelligence.
Wow, that's quite a range.
It's like they went from a dark, dreary basement to a sunny, open field.
From dystopia to utopia in a matter of seconds.
Right. It's a stark contrast to those prophecies of doom and gloom we were just talking about.
It really is. But is it realistic?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
These advancements are certainly exciting to contemplate, but we have to remember that even AI predictions are just that, predictions.
Right. And just as we shouldn't blindly accept predictions of disaster, we should also be cautious about overhyping technological progress.
Absolutely.
Remember all those promises of flying cars and robot butlers?
We're still waiting on those.
Still waiting. The future is full of surprises, both positive and negative. The key is to approach all predictions with a healthy dose of skepticism, especially those shrouded in sensationalism. So you're saying we shouldn't start building our underground bunkers and stocking up on survival gear just yet?
Probably not, but maybe keep a flashlight handy just in case.
Good point. You never know what 2024 might throw our way.
Exactly. Speaking of skepticism, let's rewind a bit and revisit our time-traveling friend, 2062.
Ah, yes, the man of mystery.
You know, the YouTubers make this hilarious point about how his predictions only started gaining traction after the events they supposedly foretold had already happened.
Oh, you mean like how everyone suddenly became a 2062 expert after the earthquakes?
Exactly.
Like they all just hopped on the 2062 bandwagon after the fact.
It is pretty convenient, isn't it?
And what's even funnier is how whenever 2062 was supposed to make another grand online appearance, this whole swarm of copycats would pop up,
Oh, yeah?
mudding the waters even further.
Making it even harder to tell who the real 2062 was.
If there even was a real one to begin with.
It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
It's more like trying to find a specific grain of sand on a beach.
Good point.
The whole thing is shrouded in so much mystery and ambiguity that it's impossible to separate fact from fiction.
It's like an internet urban legend come to life.
A digital phantom that everyone claims to have encountered, but no one can definitively prove exists.
Right.
But hey, who doesn't love a good mystery? Especially when it fuels our fascination with the unknown and the extraordinary.
But amidst all the mystery and speculation, there's a serious point to be made here. This whole 2062 phenomenon highlights how easily misinformation can spread online,
Oh, definitely.
especially when it taps into our desire for the sensational and the inexplicable.
People love a good story, even if it's completely made up.
Sadly, that's true.
Okay, enough with the time-traveling enigmas for now. Let's shift gears and explore some predictions rooted in a bit more tradition.
Back to the real world.
The YouTubers also touch upon some predictions based on Chinese astrology,
Oh, interesting.
specifically those related to the Year of the Dragon.
Ah, yes, the Year of the Dragon. A symbol of power and fortune in Chinese culture.
And 2024 just so happens to be a wood dragon year.
Which, according to these commentators, signifies some potential turbulence,
Turbulence, huh?
especially when it comes to financial matters.
So basically, buckle up your finances and maybe hold off on those risky investments.
That's one interpretation.
Sounds like a bit of a downer for those hoping to strike it rich in 2024.
But what I find fascinating is how these cultural beliefs and interpretations of time and fortune continue to influence our outlook on the future.
Even in a world dominated by technology and data,
It speaks to the enduring power of tradition.
and the human need to make sense of the unpredictable.
Exactly.
And speaking of unpredictable, the YouTubers point out a rather intriguing prediction related to financial institutions. Some astrologers believe they might shift from using persuasive tactics to more, let's say, direct methods of wealth acquisition.
Direct methods.
Yeah, like maybe a little less convince you to invest and a little more take your money,
That's a rather dramatic way of putting it. It almost sounds like they're predicting a financial Wild West.
where the rules are thrown out the window, and it's every institution for itself.
But perhaps this is just a reflection of the growing distrust in traditional systems and institutions.
Makes you wonder if we should all be investing in a good safe and a sturdy lock.
Well, if that's the case, maybe it's time to go old school.
But before you go full-on doomsday prepper, There's a glimmer of hope from the Chinese astrology camp. 2024 also marks the beginning of a new 20-year cycle,
A news cycle.
known as the Lower Yuan 9 period, or the 9 Purple Fire period.
The 9 Purple Fire period. That sounds intense.
And as the name suggests, this period is associated with the element of fire,
Fire, huh?
which in Chinese astrology is often linked to growth, passion, and transformation.
Okay, that doesn't sound too bad.
Some believe it could herald a time of prosperity
Prosperity, now we're talking.
for industries related to fire.
So like firefighters.
Well, maybe, but more like technology, energy, and even spirituality.
Oh, so like the metaphorical fire.
Exactly.
Think of it as a cosmic reboot.
A chance to ignite new possibilities.
I like the sound of that.
So fire up those laptops, folks, and maybe light a few candles for good measure.
Can't hurt, right?
But in all seriousness, it is fascinating how these ancient systems of belief offer both warnings and promises for the future.
Weaving a complex and often contradictory tapestry of potential outcomes.
It's like holding up a mirror to society and seeing what stares back.
It really is.
But enough with the deep thoughts for now. Let's get back to some more concrete predictions.
Back to the data.
The YouTubers also decided to tap into the wisdom of a language model, asking it to generate some potential scenarios for 2024.
So like consulting a digital oracle.
Exactly.
And what did this AI soothsayer have to say?
Well, it actually offered a rather balanced mix of both exciting and concerning possibilities.
The best of both worlds.
On the positive side, the AI predicted significant advancements in space tourism, life-extending therapies, and artificial intelligence.
Those are some pretty big advancements.
It's like a glimpse into a future where technology pushes the boundaries of human potential.
These are certainly areas where we've witnessed remarkable progress in recent years, so it's not entirely outlandish to envision even greater breakthroughs in 2024.
Right. But the real question is, will these advancements benefit humanity as a whole, or will they exacerbate existing inequalities and create new challenges?
That's the ethical dilemma that often accompanies technological progress.
It's a double-edged sword.
But the AI wasn't all sunshine and roses.
Oh no, what else did it predict?
It also threw in some potential curveballs.
Curveball.
Like a global cyber attack,
Oh, that's not good.
extreme weather events,
Makes sense given the current trends.
and even a major economic crisis triggered by things like digital currencies or the real estate market.
So basically it's saying the future is uncertain and potentially volatile.
It's a stark reminder that we live in an increasingly interconnected world, where the ripples of events in one corner of the globe can quickly spread and impact us all.
It's a butterfly effect on a global scale.
Exactly.
It seems like 2024 could be a year of both great leaps forward and potential pitfalls.
A year where we witness incredible technological advancements while grappling with their ethical and societal implications.
It's a reminder that the future isn't predetermined, but rather a landscape shaped by our choices and actions.
And that's perhaps the most valuable insight we can glean from all these predictions. Regardless of their accuracy or absurdity,
The future is not a fixed destination, but rather a journey filled with possibilities and challenges.
it's up to us to navigate this journey with wisdom, courage, and a healthy dose of skepticism.
It's funny, isn't it, how even the most outlandish predictions can spark some pretty entertaining thought experiments.
Oh, absolutely.
Like imagine if that 2062 prediction about India becoming a superpower with 5 billion people actually came true.
Whoa. It's mind-boggling, isn't it?
Right. Not just the logistical nightmare of squeezing that many people into India, but the sheer ripple effect it would have on the world.
Oh, yeah. Global politics, economics, culture, everything would be turned on its head.
We'd have to rethink everything.
Mm.
Resource allocation, international relations, even the global food supply chain.
Talk about a paradigm shift.
For real.
Who knows? Maybe India's approach to global leadership would be a breath of fresh air.
Maybe they'd prioritize sustainability and cooperation, ushering in an era of global harmony.
Or maybe it would be absolute chaos.
Either way, it's a fascinating thought experiment.
It really is.
But let's bring it back down to earth for a moment. We've explored all these predictions, from the absurd to the somewhat plausible. But is there anything we can actually glean from all this speculation about 2024?
That's a good question.
Any key takeaways for our listeners, besides maybe investing in a good mountain climbing guide?
Well, if we connect all these threads, I think the most valuable takeaway is the importance of critical thinking.
Critical thinking, huh?
Don't just passively absorb information, especially when it comes to predictions about the future.
So question everything.
Pretty much. Question the sources. Consider the motivations. And look for evidence.
Evidence, right?
Is there any data to support these claims? Or are they just wild guesses wrapped in sensationalism?
So basically, don't just blindly trust some random person on the internet who claims to be a time traveler from 2062.
That's a good starting point.
But it goes beyond just questioning the source, right?
Right. It's also about being aware of our own biases.
Biases.
We all have a tendency to gravitate towards information that confirms our existing worldview.
Ah, I see what you mean.
And predictions are no exception.
So if you're already convinced that the world's going to end in some fiery apocalypse,
Right.
you're probably more inclined to believe those doomsday predictions.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
So be mindful of your own filters and approach information with an open but discerning mind.
Don't let fear or wishful thinking cloud your judgment.
Precisely.
So what's the final verdict on 2024? Should we be stockpiling canned goods, reinforcing our basements, and brushing up on our mountain climbing skills?
I think a more balanced approach would be to stay informed, be prepared for potential challenges, and most importantly, remember that the future isn't set in stone.
It's not.
It's a canvas that we collectively have the power to shape.
So maybe instead of obsessing over predictions, we should focus on making choices that contribute to a better future.
Absolutely. The future is not something that just happens to us. It's something we actively create through our actions, our choices, and our collective will.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of 2024 predictions.
Yep.
We've had a good laugh, explored some absurd scenarios, and hopefully encouraged a healthy dose of skepticism along the way.
It's been a fascinating journey. And remember, dear listener, while predictions can be entertaining and thought-provoking, the future is ultimately what we make it. So go out there and make it a good one.